Today we're going to take a look at section 13.3, and we're going to look at an act called the Truth in Lending Act. This act was passed in 1968, and it addresses two major issues in lending. The first one is your right as a consumer to know what the actual APR, the annual percentage rate of a loan that you're taking out is. And so that you can have a way of judging how to compare that to another loan option. And then the second one is how much of a finance charge you're entitled to save if you don't pay something off in its full term, you pay it off early. So how much do you actually get to save from doing that? I'm going to hand out a piece of paper here in a second when we get to this particular part of the question. But we're going to use a table. Your book calls it Table 5. And it's an APR table. And it's known as the true annual interest rate. And it is standard. This is standardized by the Truth in Lending Act. And so we're going to use a scenario to kind of establish what's going on here with Ann and Andy. Remember them? All right, so back in section 13.2, we followed their journey a little bit along as they bought a refrigerator. And they didn't pay it off immediately. So shortly after the refrigerator dies, the dishwasher dies, because these things happen, right? And they seem to occur like in threes. I don't know why 3 is so special. The other day I hit something happening on the 4th time, and I'm like, I'm sorry, my limit is done. I already had 3 strikes. I should not have a 4th. That's not possible. I actually ended up with 5 before I was done with all the things that were going on, just errands and issues. But so their refrigerator dies, then their dishwasher dies. So they go and they buy a new dishwasher. Again, they finance a new dishwasher. This time there's not that grace period like there was back on that particular problem we did before. It's simply $500 for the dishwasher with 100% down. But this loan is only in 6% add-on interest rate. Okay, it's 6% for 18 months. And we're going to find the APR of the loan. Okay, so this is addressing the first issue in the Truth in Lending Act, figuring out how to find the APR that we're being charged. And I'll tell you right now, it's not 6%. Because if it were 6%, there'd be no need for this question, right? It's not 6%. So let's take a look at the scenario. We have Ann and Andy, and they are buying a dishwasher. The dishwasher costs a specific amount. They're required to put down a specific amount. Do you remember how we find the amount financed? Or what it would be with these numbers. Yeah, so this is the purchase price minus the down payment. So in our scenario, the purchase price was $2,000. That was our refrigerator. This was the dishwasher that we're just talking about right now. 500, yeah. So 500, we're putting down 100. So how much are they left to pay? $400. So this is the amount of the financing. Okay, so they're financing $400 worth of a product. We've already done that before. You know how to do that. Second step you know how to do as well. The second step is finding out the finance charge. And if you'll remember, the finance charge is the same as finding simple interest. That was the I equal PRT. It's just found the same way. R and T have to be used the same way too. R is the rate as a decimal. T is the time in years. Okay, so the P is the amount of the loan. That's what we just did in Part A, so that's the 400. What's my rate on this loan?
0.06.
Yeah, 6%, so 0.06 is R. Is everybody good with that? Okay, how about my time? So it's 18 months. Time's always in the formula, though, used in years, so 1.5 it is. Okay, so if you don't have one out, go ahead and grab a calculator. You're going to need that for several problems to do today. We're going to take 400 times 0.06 times 1.5.
36.
So it's going to cost us $36 to finance the remaining portion of the dishwasher. Make sense? So in total, we're going to end up paying, right, if I look at these two values, I'd add them together, $400 plus the $36. If you want to actually consider the amount I paid for the down payment as well, that's another $100. That's our total package price of what's going on here. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, we aren't asked that, but we'll come back to that idea in a moment. The next piece is something we haven't calculated before. This is the finance charge per $100. So I'm going to show you how we calculate that. Your book uses the letter H for it. I don't have a real good reason of why H is used, which is just a dummy variable. So we're going to call it H just like they do, okay? And what we do is we take the finance charge, and we divide it by the amount that we're financing. And we multiply it by $100. Not 100%, $100. So this is step 2 on top. And this is step 1 on bottom. Right? Amount financed was what we did in step 2. The amount, not the amount financed. The finance charge is what we did in step 2. The amount financed is what we did in step 1. We divide them, we're going to multiply it by 100. All right, so for us, what's on top?
400. Or 36.
The 36. And on the bottom will be the 400, right? And then we multiply by $100. So 36 divided by 400 times 100, what do we get? 9. Is everybody good? All right, I'm going to hand out to you the next piece that we're going to need, which is a table. So at least for doing this in class, this is going to be super helpful. When you do this in my math lab, it'll show you the table on the screen, so you don't necessarily have to use this paper copy, but they'll match. And so if it's helpful to have it in paper form, that's great. At least it'll be so you're not just looking at my screen's version of it for this problem. And we're going to use this table for a couple other problems too, actually. All right, so I have to show you how we use the table. Oh, Kendall, can you pass one back? Bailey needs that. Did everybody get theirs to the back of the rows? Yes? Okay, cool. All right, so here's the table. I've just got the version on the screen too. We're going to use this table to find the nearest H value in the correct row. And so what we do, this is literally what we do, we look along the column on the left and we figure out which of ours matches up to our monthly payments that we're paying our loan in. So how many months were we paying on our loan in?
18.
Nope, 18. Did you say 18?
I said 18.
I'm sorry, it sounded like 15. Wow, get my hearing checked. 18 is right, 18, good. So we're going to come down here to being on the row that says 18 for 18 months. Okay, everybody good with that so far? Okay, good. So we're going to be right here. Now, normally when you look at charts like this, we find the row that we're on. You know, we go down and find the row. We go over and we find the column. And when the value we're looking for is the value inside the table. Agreed? That's usually what we do. That's not how we use this table. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find the row that we're on, the number of 18 months like we did, and we're going to trace along that row until we find the value in that row nearest to the H value that we got in step 3. So we're looking for a number on the row that's 18 months that's as close as possible, and it can be valued over or valued under, but as close as possible on that row to the value of 9. It is 8.93. So it's right here. 9.35 is close as well, right? But 893 is closer than the 935. Does that make sense? Okay? So we find the 18 months, we go over to the closest value to 9, and then we go straight up and we figure out what the column header is. And what does the column header say for this? The very top. 11%. So the APR is the column header. The APR, whoops, is 11%. Notice, this is nearly double the rate of the add-on rate, right? You're not being charged 6% APR. You're being charged 11% APR. Okay? All right, any questions on how to use the table? We're going to use it for another purpose here in a minute. So we track along, we go up, we find the value. Okay. The next piece of the Truth in Lending Act had to do with if we pay a loan off early, how much do we save? How much money do we save? And so there's two different ways of figuring that out. And they both get valued like answers that are very close, but they're not identically the same. So you need to make sure that you use whichever method is being asked for in a particular question, because you won't get the same value if you use a different method. This isn't like two paths that lead to the exact same value. It won't give you the same thing. All right? There are two distinctly different ways to calculate this that lead to different answers. The first one's called the actuarial method. So a lot of this is actually already in your notes. So if you've printed them off or you should want to wait and print them off later, you won't have to write very much. Unearned interest, the actuarial method, takes an installment loan, right? One of these loans that we have equal payments for a certain length of time, requiring the monthly payments, and we're going to pay it off earlier than normal or earlier than scheduled. The capital R is going to represent our regular monthly payments for whatever the installment loan is. K is going to represent the remaining number of scheduled payments after the current payment. Talk more about that in a minute. H is the same H we calculated back on step 3, the finance charge per $100. Okay? Now, it's not necessarily calculated in the same way. I'll talk to you about that. But it's the same quantity that's being measured. Unearned interest then is calculated as K times R times H divided by 100 plus H. Now, we don't actually have all these details written down. So when we start our problem, we're going to have to identify what is K, what is R, and I'm actually going to have to show you how you figure out what H is, because it's not going to be the 9 that we saw before. Something different happens. Okay? Once we figure out how much is unearned interest, that's our savings. And it allows us then to calculate what that last payment would be on a loan. So if we have an installment loan, run monthly payments of R, it's going to be paid off early along with the current payment. If the original loan has K additional payments scheduled, okay, so another way to interpret or think about K is it's the loan payments you're not going to make, right? The ones that you're going to end up having that extra monthly value in your budget to play with to do something else, okay? That's K. Unearned interest is U. And then you've got a note here that's probably pretty valuable, because I know when I mentioned this in my class this morning, I got some jaw dropping. It says disregarding any possible prepayment penalty. So when you take out a loan, I hope you look at some of the conditions, all of the conditions, because some loans actually have a prepayment penalty. They will penalize you for paying off your loan early. Why? Because they won't get as much interest. That's why. I mean, they're really not here to serve you, right? They're a money-making institution. That's what they're doing. And so there are some loans, not all, but there are some loans that there is a penalty if you pay it off early. Beware of that. So we calculate this by taking K plus 1. That's the number of payments you have left plus 1. Multiplying it by the regular payment amount, and then subtracting the unearned interest that I described how we got on the slide before. Okay? All right, so we have Anne. Anne got a new job, and it came with a signing bonus. So out of curiosity, have you heard of this happening before? Signing bonuses. Got some nods. Nobody had any nodding heads in my other class. It happens. It's usually happening because somebody's having difficulty filling positions. So I've seen it happen in servers at restaurants before. Sometimes you'll see it happen in professions like nursing. There's a very similar thing that's happening in the teaching profession right now. A bill has just been going through the Senate and the House and is about to be signed into law, presumably, that will give teachers, and so I'm looking at my girls that I know are in teacher ed, a sign-on. It's not a sign-on bonus exactly, but it's the same kind of an idea. You complete your first year of teaching with certain conditions and you get extra money, just a bonus. Just give you $4,000 extra. That's the way it's going to work if it's signed into law and so forth. So sign-on bonuses will happen sometimes. So in her scenario, she's gotten a new job. She's got a sign-on bonus. And they decide to try to, pay off some of this stuff that they've got that is getting a little bit crazy. They got these loans all going on, right? To pay off some of their debt. they're gonna pay off the dishwasher. They originally agreed to pay 18 months. They've already paid 5. Okay, makes sense so far? So they've got a little over a year left on this loan. And we're going to find the unearned interest. So let me write down the formula for unearned interest first, and then we'll identify what all the pieces are in our scenario. So this is K times R times H over H plus, 100 plus H. We'll do it that way so it matches. All right, K is the easy one to find, so we'll do that one first. K will be the number of payments that they won't end up having to make. So they've already made 5. This next one will be the 6th one, right? It will be paid. How many will they not have to pay once they pay this thing off? 12. There will be 12 left that they don't have to pay. Okay, so far so good? Okay. So K is the number of payments that remain after the current payment. They've already paid 5. They're about to pay 6. There was 18 to start with. So we have 18 minus our 6. There's 12 left that they will not have to pay.
Why do you count the one that they haven't even paid yet?
Because they are paying it off. That's the whole point of this, is that they're about to pay it with a bunch of extra, and it'll be done. So they are paying the 6th payment with the extra payment right now. And there will be 12 payments that they don't actually have to make. Okay? All right, R. Now we haven't calculated R yet. R is supposed to be the total amount of, the monthly amount that they owe. So let's go back real quick to what we had our pieces over here. They financed $400, so they owe $400. And there's a charge of $36 for that time, right? So this means that they actually have a total that they owe of what?
436.
Right, 436. 400 was the actual product, 36 is the finance charge. So they owe 436. And they're going to be making monthly payments across how many months originally was it saying? 18. To the right screen. So we have $436 that they owe, including the financing, and we'll divide it by 18. And this is what their monthly payment would be. All right, so take 436 and divide by 18, and what do we get? And we'll have to round to 2 decimals. 24, 22, is that right? Okay. Okay, everybody good? Okay. H. It's really tempting to say H is 9. In fact, it was typoed in my notes to say that, so I taught it this morning, and I put 9 in there, even though I was like, I don't think it's supposed to be 9. So I went back and I double-checked, and I was right. I just didn't want to be wrong against my notes. So here's how we do this. Take your table, okay? On your table, in fact, I'll go back over to my table over here. On your table, we know we have an 11% APR financing, correct? We are stuck in this 11% column. Everybody good with that? But we're no longer going to pay those extra 12 payments. Do we agree with that? So what we do is we take the 11% column and we look at the 12 monthly payment row, because that's the ones we're not going to pay. So now we actually are doing, kind of what you normally do with tables. We're looking at the column that's 11% and the row that's the 12. Okay, so it's always the K values row that we're looking at, the number of payments we're not going to make. And H is going to be where they cross. So that's 606. That's H. So H is 606, and it's coming from the K equal 12 row and the 11% APR column. We've identified the 3 pieces that we need to calculate the U, the unearned interest now. So over here, K is 12, R is 24, 22, and H is 6.06. And I'm just going to add the denominator together with that, so that's 106.06. So we're going to multiply, do a little bit of division. And this is the interest that it will save us by paying it off early. What do you get? $16.61. Is that okay? 1661. All right. So then the follow-up question to this would then be, what would that last payment need to be? So we're going to make this last payment, like Amani was asking, like we're going to pay off the payment that we would normally be making plus extra, so that the loan is wiped out. Okay. So we had a formula that we were given for that as well, a payoff formula. So the payoff is the K value plus 1 times your regular payments. Okay, so why is it K plus 1? Well, it's the K remaining payments. We're not going to play plus the one we're paying right now, times our regular payment amount minus the unearned interest that we found on Part A. So this is 12 plus 1, or 13, times 24, 22, minus 1661. What's our payoff?
$298.25.
All right, so if you have loans, like a car loan perhaps would be a good example, or like for us, we have a mortgage. You often have some sort of electronic access to see that account. And at any point, you should be able to go in, and it will likely tell you, depending on how their system is set up, the payoff amount. That's how our mortgage account works. I could go in at any point and say, I have X number of dollars, I could pay off my house today. Woohoo, it's gonna be amazing when it happens. I'm gonna be so excited. So it'll tell you that this is one of the two ways that this could be calculated. Okay, the actuarial method, the behind the scenes stuff. You ready to look at the next one? Okay, the next one doesn't involve the table, so it makes it a little bit easier to work with, okay? All right, the next one is called the Rule of 78. So much of the pieces that we see show up in problems again, like we're seeing the K showing up here, but we've got a couple others that are new. So this is a closed-end loan, installment loan, right? Monthly payments, paid off earlier than originally scheduled, all those same sort of scenarios set up. F is the original finance charge. We saw that before. That was our $36. N is the number of payments originally in our loan. We saw that too, right? And then K is the remaining number of scheduled payments that we're not going to make, or after the payment we're making now. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply our remaining payments times the payments plus 1, divided by our original number of payments we were supposed to make, times the original number plus 1, and multiply that by my finance charge. There's no table involved. There's no H involved. We don't even have the R involved here, the regular payment amount. So we're going to do the same problem that we had with Ann and Andy, but we're going to do it with the Rule of 78. Okay? So on this one, the U is K times K plus 1 over H times H plus 1. I don't mean H, sorry, N. N times N plus 1 times F. Okay, so we already said K is 12. We've had that. What was my N value, the number of monthly loan payments I'm supposed to have made?
12.
That's K.
18.
18. So we were setting it up originally to be 18. We're going to end up making 6, but the last one's going to be extra, right? And we won't pay 12. So the original number is the 18. And then what is the finance charge back on the first problem that we found? It was $36. So these are the values that are going to go into the equation I have. So we have 12 times 12 plus 1, or you can just write 13, divided by 18 times 18 plus 1, or you can just write 19, times 36. A couple of things about this. Be very careful with your calculator, depending on how it thinks about order of operations. I mean, even if you've written this down with this saying 12 times 13 over 18 times 19, like this, and then times the 36. If you're not careful, what your calculator might try to do is multiply 12 times 13, and you hit divide by 18, and then it actually multiplies by 19, like it's multiplying all the results by 19. So be careful. If you're concerned that it might happen, I would just advise you to multiply the top and multiply the bottom. So if I multiply my top, I have 156. If I multiply the bottom, I have 342. And then I can multiply by 36. So 156 divided by 342, and then times 36. It should give you 1642. Is anybody's calculator not say that? Or it's stuck in fraction form? A couple people with stuck in fraction form issues this morning. No? Okay, everybody got a 1642? Fabulous. All right, so this is the unearned interest. Okay, but let's be real. 1642. What was it over here? Whoops, that's not the right screen. Two back? There we go. 1661. They're almost the same, right? They're not exact. They're not. And my method will count you wrong, right? If you do the wrong one and you give the wrong value, because they're enough off. It's not like it's super close. But they're close. I mean, like, are we going to really quibble about 20 cents? Probably not. They're giving you values that are very, very close together, but they're not going to be the same. The payoff amount is found the same way. So to do my payoff, I take K plus 1 times my regular payments minus the unearned interest. So 12 plus 1, or 13, times the 24.22, minus this times 16.42. So again, it should be pretty close to the 298.25, right? Because the only difference was the unearned interest, and it didn't differ by that much. So what do you get for the final payoff using the rule of 78? $298.44. $298.44. Any questions on that? All right.